Chapter 1. The Spirits of the Forest. Long ago, in a land where the boundaries between the natural world and the realm of spirits were thin, there existed a forest unlike any other. It stretched across the valley like a living tapestry, each tree and rock brimming with secrets. This was not an ordinary forest. It was the home of spirits, ancient beings who governed the elements of nature and the flow of life. The heart of the forest was protected by mighty beings, led by a fierce spirit known as Elya, the forest guardian. Elya was neither a human nor a creature, but something in between, formed from the very essence of the earth itself. She had the shape of a woman, but her skin shimmered with the hues of leaves, and her hair swirled like the winds. Her eyes glowed with the wisdom of centuries, and it was said that her presence alone could make the trees sway in reverence. One day, a young boy named Asher ventured deep into the forest. He was not unlike other children of the village, curious and full of wonder. But Asher's journey had a purpose. He was searching for the source of the strange happenings that had been plaguing his home. Crops had withered, animals had disappeared, and strange whispers filled the air every night. The village elders spoke of a curse, one that had been placed upon the land long ago by the spirits of the forest. But no one knew how to lift it. Asher had heard rumors of a powerful being deep within the forest, Elya, the guardian. If anyone could help the village, it would be her. With nothing but a small pack and his resolve, Asher ventured forward, following the winding paths that led him deeper into the heart of the mystical woods. The forest seemed to welcome him, the trees whispering secrets in languages he could not understand. He passed by towering oaks whose branches formed a canopy so thick that sunlight barely pierced through. He saw the delicate dance of fireflies lighting up the dim spaces between trees, and heard the distant roar of a waterfall hidden somewhere in the depths of the forest. As Asher moved deeper, he felt a strange energy pulse around him. The air became thick, and he could sense the presence of something watching him. It wasn't until he reached a clearing that he saw it. A figure standing before him, her form almost blending with the environment. Elya, the forest guardian. "Why have you come, child?" Her voice echoed in his mind, soft yet powerful, like the wind rustling through the leaves. Asher stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "I've come to ask for your help. My village is dying. The land is cursed, and no one knows how to stop it. Please, you're the only one who can help us." Elya's eyes shimmered as she regarded the boy. She could feel the sincerity in his words, but she also knew that the curse was not so easily lifted. The balance of nature had been disturbed, and there was something far darker at play than the boy realized. "The land is not cursed by mere happenstance, child," Elya said, her voice deepening. "There is a force at work, one that seeks to sever the connection between nature and man. You must understand that humans have forgotten their place in this world. You have lost respect for the spirits, for the earth, and for the very life that sustains you." Asher stood silent, his mind racing. He had heard the stories, but he hadn't truly understood their meaning. "What must I do? How can I save my people?" Elya's gaze softened, and for a moment, she almost seemed sad. "To restore the balance, you must venture to the heart of the forest, where the ancient wellspring of life resides. But beware, young one. There are those who seek to control the flow of life for their own gain. You must be brave, for the path ahead will be fraught with dangers." With those words, Elya vanished into the trees, leaving Asher standing alone in the clearing, more determined than ever to save his village. Chapter 2. The Path of Trials. Asher stood alone in the clearing, the sounds of the forest wrapping around him like a blanket. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying Elya's words like an echo in his mind. "To restore the balance, venture to the heart of the forest," she had said. But what did that truly mean? The heart of the forest? He had heard the legends, tales of a powerful wellspring of life hidden deep within the forest, but no one had ever returned from seeking it. He had no choice but to trust in the forest's mysterious guidance. With a deep breath, Asher tightened the straps of his pack, his resolve solidifying. He could not afford to waste time. His village depended on him. The once thriving fields had turned barren, and the once lush forests around his home now stood silent. The air, once sweet and filled with the scent of blooming flowers, had become heavy with a sense of despair. But maybe, just maybe, the forest could heal it. As he ventured deeper into the forest, the path before him seemed to twist and turn with no clear direction. The trees grew taller and closer together, their thick canopies blocking out the light of the sun. Every step Asher took seemed to lead him further into the unknown. The only sounds he could hear were his own footsteps and the distant calls of unseen creatures. But the further Asher traveled, the more he began to notice the changes around him. The once sturdy trees seemed to bend in unnatural ways, their branches creaking as though they were alive. Beyond just the way trees are alive, there was something in the air, an unnatural feeling that set his nerves on edge. It wasn't just the forest that had been disturbed. Something else had entered, something dark. Then, suddenly, a rustle from the underbrush startled him. Asher froze, his breath catching in his throat. Out from the shadows stepped a creature unlike any he had ever seen. Its body was made of twisted vines, and its eyes glowed a fiery red. The creature's form was vaguely humanoid, but its limbs were thick with branches and thorns, as though it had grown out of the very earth itself. It stepped toward Asher with a slow, deliberate gait, its eyes never leaving his. "Who dares to wander in these cursed woods?" the creature growled, its voice low and rough, like the rumble of thunder. I'm just a traveler," Asher stammered, taking a cautious step back. "I seek the heart of the forest. I have to reach it to save my village. Please, I mean no harm." The creature paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as it assessed Asher. "The heart of the forest. You are not the first to seek it. But those who have come before you did not return." The creature's gaze flickered for a moment, as though recalling something dark and ancient. "What makes you different from them, little human? Why should you succeed where others have failed?" Asher swallowed, trying to summon the courage to speak. "I don't know if I'm different, but I have to try. I must save my people. If I fail, there may be no one left." The creature studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "Very well, you may continue. But know this, the path ahead will not be easy. The forest does not forgive those who trespass recklessly. If you truly wish to find the heart of the forest, you must prove your worth." Before Asher could respond, the creature turned and disappeared into the dense undergrowth, leaving only the echoes of its words behind. The air seemed to grow heavier, the forest darker. Asher knew that he had only just begun his journey, and the true trials were yet to come. As he moved forward, the forest became denser, the trees towering above him like silent sentinels. The shadows seemed to lengthen, and the air grew colder. Strange shapes flickered in the corners of his vision, creatures of the forest, watching him from the depths. But Asher pressed on, determined to reach his goal. Hours passed, and the forest seemed to close in around him, as though it were testing his resolve. Then, just as the last slivers of daylight began to fade, Asher came upon a clearing. At the center of the clearing stood a great stone archway, covered in vines and moss. It was ancient, older than anything Asher had ever seen. But it wasn't the archway that caught his attention. It was the creature standing before it. This one was smaller than the vine creature, but no less intimidating. It was a wolf, but not an ordinary wolf. Its fur shimmered like moonlight, and its eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. It stood tall, as if guarding the path beyond. "The trials begin now, young traveler." The wolf spoke, its voice both soft and commanding. "You must prove your courage, your wisdom, and your heart. Only then will you be allowed to pass." Asher's heart raced. He had no idea what awaited him beyond the archway, but he was determined to face whatever it was. He had no choice. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at him. The wolf's eyes glinted with approval. "Very well. The first trial is one of courage. To pass, you must face your deepest fear." Before Asher could even react, the ground beneath him trembled. The earth cracked open, and from the darkness below emerged a terrible creature. Its form was twisted and monstrous, with glowing red eyes and claws that seemed to stretch on forever. It roared, its voice shaking the very air around them. The trial had begun. Chapter 3: The Trial of Courage. Asher stood frozen in place, his breath caught in his throat. The creature that emerged from the cracked earth was a terrifying sight, a twisted being of shadow and flame. Its eyes burned like embers, its mouth wide with a hunger that seemed to draw in the very light around it. The air was thick with its foul stench, and the ground trembled beneath its weight. It was a creature of nightmares, one that seemed to exist only to devour and destroy. But Asher could not back down. He had come too far and risked too much to turn back now. His heart hammered in his chest, but his resolve remained strong. This was the trial of courage, and he would face it. The wolf, standing silently by the archway, watched intently. His glowing eyes never left Asher. "You must face your fear," it spoke, its voice a calm contrast to the chaos unfolding before them. "Do not let it control you. If you stand firm, you will find the strength to overcome." The creature growled, its massive claws scraping against the earth as it advanced toward Asher, its fiery gaze locked onto him. The ground cracked and splintered beneath its weight. Every instinct in Asher's body screamed at him to run, to flee, to escape. But deep down, he knew that running was not an option. His people depended on him, and this trial was a test of more than just physical strength. It was a test of his will. Asher closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. The forest around him seemed to grow still, as though it too was holding its breath. For a brief instant, the terror that had gripped him melted away, replaced by a quiet determination. He opened his eyes and looked at the creature that loomed before him. His fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. With a surge of courage, Asher stepped forward. "I will not let fear rule me," he whispered to himself, his voice steady. The creature roared, its claws slashing the air in a wild frenzy. Asher ducked and dodged, using every ounce of agility he had to avoid the creature's blows. He felt the heat of its fiery breath as it swept past him, narrowly missing him by inches. But Asher didn't stop. He didn't falter. He kept moving, pushing past the fear, focusing on the space in front of him. The creature lunged at him once more, but this time, Asher was ready. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small, gleaming stone, a gift from the forest spirit Elya, given to him before he had set off. The stone glowed with a soft, ethereal light, pulsing with a strange energy. He held it out in front of him. The creature lunged at him once more, but this time, Asher was ready. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small, gleaming stone, a gift from the forest spirit Elya, given to him before he had set off. The stone glowed with a soft, ethereal light, pulsing with a strange energy. He held it out in front of him, and for the first time the creature hesitated. The stone's glow intensified, and Asher felt a surge of warmth in his chest. It was as if the very essence of the forest was lending him strength. He could feel the presence of Elya's spirit all around him, guiding him, urging him to face this trial with strength and clarity. The creature recoiled, its form flickering like a dying flame, its growls turning into ragged breaths. It was weakening. Asher seized the moment. With a final, determined step forward, he thrust the stone directly into the creature's chest. There was a burst of light, a flash that filled the clearing, and then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature disintegrated into a cloud of smoke and ash. Asher stood panting, his heart racing, but a sense of peace washed over him. The trial had been passed, and the creature was gone. The forest around him seemed to breathe once more, the oppressive weight lifting as the shadows receded. The wolf approached him, its eyes glowing softly in the fading light. "You have faced your fear, young traveler," it said. "But this is only the first trial. The road ahead is long, and many more challenges await you. You must remain steadfast, for the forest is full of dangers that seek to test your very spirit." Asher nodded, his body still trembling from the intensity of the trial. He had been afraid, but he had overcome it. The lesson was clear: fear was not something to be defeated, but something to be understood and controlled. It was a part of him, but it did not define him. "Thank you," Asher said, his voice steady now. "I will continue on." The wolf nodded in approval. "Very well. You have earned the right to pass. Go forth, and remember that the heart of the forest is not only a place, but a journey. The trials will continue, and they will grow more difficult. But with each step you take, you will grow stronger." With that, the wolf stepped aside, allowing Asher to pass through the ancient stone archway. As he walked through, he felt a new sense of purpose. The first trial had been won, but there were still many more ahead. The path would not be easy, but Asher was ready. Chapter 4: The Trial of Wisdom. As Asher stepped beyond the stone archway, the air around him shifted once more. The forest felt different now, quieter, yet more alive than ever. The trees, once imposing, now seemed to lean toward him, as if they were watching, waiting. The path ahead was narrow, winding, and the sky above was obscured by a canopy so dense that only a few rays of sunlight managed to break through. The forest was dense with ancient energy, and Asher could feel it in his bones. He had passed the trial of courage, but the wolf's words echoed in his mind. The trials will continue, and they will grow more difficult. This next trial, the trial of wisdom, would be unlike anything he had yet encountered. Courage had been important, but wisdom, the wolf had said, would be the key to overcoming what lay ahead. The deeper he ventured, the more uncertain the path became. The trees seemed to twist and turn in strange ways, their trunks contorting into impossible shapes, and the ground beneath his feet felt soft and uneven. It was as though the very landscape was shifting, playing tricks on him. Asher had no choice but to keep moving forward, though every step felt like it brought him further away from the world he knew. The silence of the forest was deafening, and even the usual rustling of leaves seemed to have disappeared. Then, in the distance, he saw something, a faint glow, like the light of a distant star. Curiosity tugged at him, and despite the uncertainty that gripped him, he followed the light. With each step, it seemed to draw closer, and soon he found himself standing before a large stone archway, identical to the one he had passed earlier. But this one was different. Atop the archway, carved into the stone, was an inscription written in an ancient script that Asher did not recognize. The glow emanated from beneath the arch, where the ground appeared to shimmer with a soft, silver light. Asher hesitated. This was the place, the next trial. Standing before the archway, he felt a presence, a shift in the air, and a voice echoed from the shadows of the trees. "To pass through, you must answer a question," the voice said, calm and measured, as though it had always been there. "This is the trial of wisdom. If you fail to answer correctly, the path will remain closed, and you will be lost within the forest forever." Asher swallowed, his throat dry. He had heard stories of trials like this, tests of wit, riddles posed by the ancient spirits of the forest. But he had never been good at riddles. Would he be able to answer the question and continue his journey? The voice continued, "What is the most valuable thing in the world?" Asher stood there, stunned by the simplicity of the question. What is the most valuable thing in the world? He could think of many answers: gold, happiness, freedom, love, knowledge. Each of these seemed like a reasonable answer, but none of them felt right. The trial was about wisdom, not about the obvious or the expected. The answer needed to come from deeper within him, from the lessons he had learned along the way. Asher closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He thought about his village, his people, his home, the forest. He thought about the trials he had already faced, the courage it took to face his fears, the determination to continue despite the odds. He thought about what he had learned from his journey so far. That life wasn't about possession or wealth, but about balance. The spirits of the forest had made that clear. Life itself was fragile, interconnected, and everything had a place and purpose. He opened his eyes and stepped forward, his voice steady as he spoke. "The most valuable thing in the world is the balance between all things, the harmony between the earth, the spirits, and the people. There was a long silence, and for a moment, Asher wondered if he had made a mistake. Had he misunderstood the question? But then, the ground beneath him began to tremble, and the silver light around the archway grew brighter. Slowly, the stone began to shift, the inscription glowing with a golden hue. The voice spoke again, this time with a note of approval. "You are wise, young traveler. The balance you seek is the heart of the forest. You have answered correctly." Asher's heart swelled with relief, but there was no time to rest. The archway before him began to rise, revealing a path beyond, shrouded in mist. As he stepped through, he realized the forest had changed again. It was quieter now, more serene. The trials were not just physical. They were shaping his understanding of the world, his place within it, and his relationship with nature. Chapter 5: The Trial of the Heart. The mist thickened as Asher walked deeper into the forest. The trees, now towering and ancient, seemed to press in on him from all sides. The air grew cooler, the silence heavier. Even the birds had stopped singing, and the wind, which had once whispered through the leaves, was now still. It was as though the forest itself was holding its breath. As he walked, Asher felt a strange unease creeping up his spine. The trial of wisdom had been difficult, but he had passed. He had learned the importance of balance and harmony between the natural world and humankind. But now, as he ventured deeper into the unknown, he could sense that this next trial would be unlike anything he had faced before. It was no longer about courage or knowledge. It was something more personal, something that would test the very core of who he was. After what seemed like hours of walking, the mist cleared, and Asher found himself standing before an enormous, shimmering pool of water. The surface was perfectly still, reflecting the sky above, which was now a deep indigo. The trees surrounding the pool were ancient, their trunks twisted and gnarled with age. But what caught Asher's attention most was the figure standing beside the water. It was a woman, dressed in flowing robes of green and gold, her hair long and dark like the night. She stood with her back to him, gazing at the water. Her presence was calm, almost serene, but there was something deeply unsettling about her as well. "Welcome, young traveler," she said without turning. Her voice was like a melody, soft and soothing, yet carrying an undeniable weight. "You have passed the trials of courage and wisdom, but this trial is different. This trial will test the very heart of who you are." Asher felt a chill run down his spine, but he didn't back away. He had come too far to turn back now. "What is this trial?" he asked, his voice steady. The woman finally turned to face him, and Asher was struck by the intensity of her gaze. Her eyes were dark, but they seemed to contain the weight of countless ages, as though they could see deep into his soul. "This is the trial of the heart," she said. "Here, you will face your greatest fears, not in the form of monsters or challenges, but in the form of your own heart. You will confront the pain, the guilt, and the doubts that you carry within you. Only by facing them can you move forward." Asher's heart raced. What did she mean by that? He had already faced his fears, hadn't he? But as he looked into her eyes, something stirred deep within him. There were things he had never allowed himself to truly confront. Old wounds, buried memories, and choices he had made that haunted him. The woman smiled gently, as if she could read his thoughts. "The heart is a powerful thing, young one. It holds both our greatest strengths and our deepest scars. You cannot move forward until you face both." With a wave of her hand, the surface of the pool began to ripple. Asher stepped closer, drawn by its strange allure. The water began to shimmer and swirl, and as he gazed into it, he saw images of his past. He saw himself as a young child, running through the fields with his friends, laughing and carefree. But then the image shifted. He saw his parents, their faces filled with worry and fear. He saw the day the village had been attacked by raiders, the day everything had changed. The day he had lost his home, his family, and everything he had known. He had been so young, so helpless. He had watched as the flames consumed everything, as his people fled in terror. He had felt so small, so powerless. And in the midst of the chaos, he had made a choice a choice that he had never fully understood until now. The image shifted again. Asher saw himself standing in the aftermath of the attack, the village reduced to rubble. He had been alone, terrified, and uncertain. But in that moment, he had made a vow to never let anyone hurt his people again. He had decided to become strong, to fight, to protect. But in doing so, he had buried the pain. He had buried the fear. As the images in the water continued to shift, Asher saw more moments. Moments of fear, moments of doubt. He saw the pain he had tried so hard to push away. He saw the weight of the choices he had made, the guilt he had carried, and the darkness that had followed him ever since. The woman spoke again, her voice soft and reassuring. These are the memories of your heart. The pain, the loss, the fear. It all lives within you. But you must face it. You must accept it in order to move forward. Asher closed his eyes, his heart heavy with the weight of everything he had seen. He had carried these scars for so long, but he had never truly faced them. He had pushed them down, thinking that if he ignored them, they would go away. But they hadn't. They had followed him, shaping him in ways he hadn't understood. He opened his eyes again, this time looking at the woman with a new understanding. "I've been running from it, haven't I?" he said softly. "Running from the pain, the guilt, everything. I thought if I became strong enough, if I protected everyone, I could make it all go away. But it's always been inside me." The woman nodded. Strength is not just in the power to fight, but in the courage to face the darkness within yourself. Only by accepting all that you are, the pain, the loss, and the love, can you truly heal. Asher took a deep breath, his hands trembling. He had spent so long hiding from his emotions, from the memories that still haunted him. But now, standing before this wise spirit, he knew that he could not continue on his journey without confronting the truth. With a slow, deliberate motion, Asher stepped forward and knelt by the water. He gazed into its depths, seeing not just the painful memories, but also the lessons they had taught him. He had grown stronger because of them, and he had learned the value of courage and hope. He had learned that the heart, though fragile, could heal. For the first time, Asher felt at peace with himself. The woman smiled gently, and the water began to calm. "You have passed the trial of the heart, young traveler. You are ready to continue your journey." As Asher stood, he felt lighter, as though a burden had been lifted from his chest. The forest seemed to welcome him once more, the air around him fresh and full of possibility. He had faced his heart's darkest corners and emerged stronger. The path ahead was still uncertain, but now, with his heart at peace, he knew he could face whatever trials lay in wait. Chapter 6. The Heart of the Forest. As Asher emerged from the trial of the heart, a newfound sense of clarity filled him. The weight that had once pressed so heavily upon him had lightened, and, for the first time in his journey, he felt truly at peace. The path ahead seemed less daunting, the trees around him no longer oppressive. In fact, the forest itself felt more alive, as though it were rooting for him, whispering encouragement on the breeze. But Asher knew that his journey was far from over. The heart of the forest still awaited him, and he could feel its presence drawing him forward. The deeper he ventured, the stronger the pull became. He had already faced so many trials, courage, wisdom, and the truth of his own heart. But he knew that the final trial would be the most difficult of all. The path now before him was clearer, winding through the trees toward a distant mountain that rose majestically in the horizon. He could see the faint glow of something powerful emanating from the peak. A soft light, almost like a heartbeat, pulsing in time with the rhythm of the forest. This was it. This was the heart of the forest. The air was thick with energy, and as he drew closer, the forest seemed to grow even more alive. The trees whispered louder, their voices blending into a hum of life. Asher's heart beat in sync with the forest's rhythm, and he knew that the connection between the two was deepening. He had learned so much along his journey, and the forest was now an integral part of him. As he reached the base of the mountain, he paused for a moment, looking up at its towering height. The journey up would not be easy. The air here was thin, and the climb would be treacherous, But Asher did not hesitate. He had come this far and he was ready. The mountain path was steep, and the rocky terrain made each step a challenge. But with every climb, Asher felt a surge of strength. The lessons he had learned, the courage to face his fears, the wisdom to understand the balance of the world, and the peace within his own heart, gave him the resolve to press on. Halfway up the mountain, the air grew colder, and the mist thickened. The trees here were sparse, their branches twisted and blackened by time. The wind howled through the cracks in the rocks, but Asher kept climbing, determined to reach the peak. As he neared the summit, he could feel a shift in the air. Something powerful and ancient was waiting for him. The ground beneath him began to tremble, and the pulsing light from above grew brighter, as though the mountain itself was alive. When Asher finally reached the top, he was greeted by a sight unlike anything he had ever seen. In the center of the mountaintop stood an enormous tree, its bark glowing with an otherworldly light. Its roots stretched deep into the earth, and its branches reached high into the sky, touching the clouds. This was the heart of the forest, the source of all life in the land. The tree's energy pulsed like a beating heart, and Asher could feel its power surging through him. But the tree was not alone. Standing before it was a figure, cloaked in shadows, their face hidden in the folds of their hood. The figure's presence was dark, oppressive, and Asher immediately felt a chill wash over him. "Who are you?" Asher asked, his voice steady, though his heart raced. The figure turned slowly, revealing eyes that burned like embers. "I am the one who has sought to destroy the balance," the figure said, their voice like the crackling of fire. "I am the force that has corrupted the land, that has severed the connection between man and nature. And now, I will claim the heart of the forest as my own." Asher's blood ran cold. He had heard the whispers in the forest, but he had not fully understood what they meant until now. The curse that had plagued his village, the disturbances in nature, it was all the work of this dark figure. "You cannot have it," Asher said, stepping forward, his voice filled with resolve. "This is the heart of the forest. It belongs to no one. It is the lifeblood of the earth, and I will protect it." The figure's laugh echoed through the mountain, sending shivers down Asher's spine. "You think you can stop me? You are just a child, a mere mortal. The heart of the forest is nothing but a tool, and I will use it to reshape the world in my image." With that, the figure raised their hands, and the ground beneath Asher trembled violently. The sky darkened, and the wind howled, a storm building from the depths of the earth. The figure's dark energy surged, and Asher could feel the very air around him grow thick with malice. But Asher did not falter. He had faced his fears. He had confronted the darkness within himself. And now he was ready to face the true darkness that threatened the forest and his world. As he stood tall before the dark figure, the energy of the heart of the forest pulsed stronger within him. He reached out, calling upon everything he had learned on his journey. The courage to face his fears, the wisdom to understand the balance, and the peace within his heart. The light from the heart of the forest began to shine brighter, its glow filling the mountaintop. Asher extended his hand toward the tree, feeling its energy flow into him. He had learned that the true power of the heart was not in its ability to destroy, but in its ability to heal, to restore balance. With a burst of light, the dark figure's power was repelled, their form disintegrating into nothingness. The storm subsided, and the mountain grew still. The air cleared, and the pulsing glow of the heart of the forest settled into a soft, steady rhythm. Asher stood at the summit, breathing heavily but triumphant. The curse had been lifted. The balance had been restored. The forest around him seemed to breathe again, the trees whispering in relief. Asher turned toward the heart of the forest, his heart filled with gratitude. He had completed his journey, not just for himself, but for all who depended on the balance between the earth, the spirits, and mankind. The forest was no longer cursed. It was alive once more. Chapter 7: The Restoration. As Asher stood at the summit, the light of the heart of the forest gradually faded, returning to its natural, gentle glow. The storm had passed, and the air was clear once more. The pulse of the heart, once frantic with dark energy, now beat with a soothing rhythm, a reminder of the harmony that had been restored. He looked around the mountaintop, the barren rocks now blooming with life. Small flowers, vibrant and colorful, sprouted from the stone, and the air smelled of fresh earth and the sweet scent of new growth. The forest was healing, and so was the land he had fought to protect. For a long moment, Asher stood in silence, contemplating everything he had endured, the trials, the struggles, the lessons learned, and the strength he had gained. He had not only saved his village but had also mended the connection between the forest and humankind, something that had been broken for so long. It was a victory for both the spirits of the earth and the people who had forgotten their place within it. Then, from behind him, Asher heard a soft rustle. He turned to find Elya, the forest guardian, emerging from the trees. She stepped forward with grace, her presence as serene as it had been when they first met. "You have done it, young traveler," she said, her voice filled with pride. "The heart of the forest has been restored, and with it, the balance that was once lost. The land will heal, and the people will remember their connection to the earth." Asher nodded, a smile crossing his face. He had done it. The journey was complete, but the work was only just beginning. "What will happen now?" he asked. Ilya's eyes gleamed with a quiet understanding. "Now the true test begins. You have learned the importance of courage, wisdom, and the heart, but the world you return to will not be the same. The path forward requires a deeper understanding. It is not enough to simply restore balance. You must ensure that it remains." Asher took in her words. The forest had been healed, but he knew that the world was still fragile. Humans, like the spirits, were part of this delicate balance, and he would need to help guide them back to harmony with nature. This was not a victory that could be celebrated and forgotten. It was a call to action. "I understand," Asher said, his voice strong. "I will return to my people, and I will help them remember. I will teach them what I have learned, that the balance between us and the earth is sacred. We must honor it, or it will be lost again." Elya smiled warmly. "You are ready, Asher. You have faced your fears, your doubts, and the darkness within. Now you carry with you the knowledge of the forest, the wisdom of the spirits, and the strength of your heart. You are the bridge between two worlds, and it is up to you to keep that bridge strong." With those final words, Elya stepped back into the trees, her form dissolving into the forest as if she had never been there. The trees around Asher seemed to bow in her passing, and he felt a deep sense of peace. The forest, the spirits, and the world he had fought for would endure. Epilogue: the journey ahead. As Asher made his way down the mountain, he felt lighter than he ever had before. The trials had shaped him, but they had also revealed the truth about the world, and about himself. He was not just a boy from a small village. He was a part of something much greater, something that stretched beyond the boundaries of human understanding. When he finally reached his village, it was as though nothing had changed. The fields were still barren, and the homes stood in silence. But Asher knew that this was not the end of his journey. It was only the beginning. He spoke to the elders and to the people of the village, telling them of his trials, of the lessons he had learned, and of the heart of the forest. Slowly, the people began to listen, to understand. They saw the change in Asher, how he had transformed from a boy seeking strength into a man who understood the delicate balance of life. They, too, began to remember the old ways, the ways of living in harmony with the earth, the spirits, and each other. Over time, the village began to heal. The crops returned, the animals returned, and the land once again became fertile. The balance was restored, not just in the forest, but in the hearts of the people as well. Asher often visited the forest, standing at the edge of the trees, feeling the pulse of the heart of the forest within him. It was a reminder that the work was never truly done, that the balance between nature and humankind had to be maintained, not just through great deeds, but through everyday choices, respect, and understanding. And so, the boy who had once feared the darkness became the man who brought light to the world. He had saved the heart of the forest, but in doing so, he had saved himself, and, in the process, had helped to restore the balance between the earth, the spirits, and humankind. Asher's journey had come full circle, and though the trials had been difficult, they had given him the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but he knew one thing for sure. The forest, the heart, and the balance between all living things would always be his guiding light. And with that, Asher walked into the future, knowing that no matter what came next, he would be ready.